2021, the year that we are still surviving in this pandemic of COVID-19. An incredibly good day and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I bid to our delightful judges, valued audiences, and not to forget the most important figures for today's discussion, our four educated panelists. Welcome to our Tech Talk, and I would like to thank to all for making time to watch our forum discussion. Looking young but matured here, I am Nurul Asmida binti Jafari, and I will be the moderator for today's discussion, which is the virtual recruitment and selection will outlive COVID-19. Wow, reading and hearing from the title, it is such an interesting topic to be highlighted and to be discussed. Alright, without wasting more time, I would like to introduce you to our four involved panels today. With us here is Nur Izzati binti Kamal, HR Manager, Nurul Farihin binti Mat Amin, an admin in network food industry, Nur Shalila binti Yunus, the HR advisor, and lastly, as can be seen, the only guy among us, the ladies, Muhammad Shazwan bin Muhammad Nurizan, an HR executive in Panasonic, Malaysia. As we all know and we all well experiencing, since the year of 2019 to up till now, the current situation, which is pandemic of COVID-19, has affected not only in Malaysia but throughout globally. Due to pandemic, it limits most activities, be it schools, higher education, economic sectors, government, and more to come are affected, and most of the activities for it have been limited too. This is including the process for a company or an organization to recruit and to select new employees for their company or an organization. Thus, due to the limitation to access here and there and to avoid more physical contacts, recruiters are using another alternative to recruit and select their future employee, which is by virtual using online platforms such as Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, WhatsApp, and many other alternatives via online platforms. For further details about this topic, I would like to seek more information and would like to know the advantages for virtual recruitment and selection on any perspective from our first panel, Muhammad Shazwan. So Shazwan, as an HR executive, what do you know about virtual recruitment and selection from your own point of view, and what are the advantages that will be gained from it?
Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you, moderator. I'm panel number 1. My name is Muhammad Shazwan bin Muhammad Nurizan. I'm executive in human resource in company Panasonic. Alright, what is virtual selection and recruitment? Virtual recruitment describes the hiring process that takes place virtually without meeting the candidate face to face. In this modern way of hiring, recruiters and line managers utilize online recruitment portals, social media platform, and conferencing technology to find and interview candidates. Social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram have become the mainstream for screening candidates. Understanding their market presence beyond the CV profile, immediate access to recommendations, and instant communication without intermediaries. They are also important tools of engagement with the potential candidate and developing a brand presence as an attractive employer. What is advantage in virtual selection? First, my point of view is hiring can continue. COVID-19 has changed how many of us interact in person socially and professionally. Traditional interview usually entail an in-person element that is meant to facilitate personal connection. Now that many companies are working remotely, meeting in person for interviewing is most likely off limits. Building a virtual recruiting program will allow the business to continue growing and meeting hiring demand. Point number 2. Virtual recruiting events are most cost effective. Attending recruiting event and job fair in person is expensive. After tallying up the people, supply, and travel costs, the cost per hire is considerably higher through physical event and than through virtual. On top of cost, precious time is spent by employees you are sending to in-person event. With virtually requiring event, it's easier for you recruiters and employees to balance their day-to-day job while still contributing to the requiring program because they can hop in and out of virtual event from their workspace whenever they are in the world. Point number 3. Less stress for candidate. We all have the fear of something going terribly wrong when we are interviewing for a new job. Getting stuck in traffic, not finding parking, and all around being late for some reason outside of our control. I compare the interview experience for a candidate to playing an away game in any sport. The candidate is on someone else's turf and therefore immediately disadvantaged and outside of their comfort zone. I found candidates have been more at ease when they are interviewing with my company virtually, which allow for cutting through the pleasantry and warming up the conversation. We have more time to focus on what the interview really entails. Seeing candidates interview from the comfort of their own home has been pleasant showcase of the material value of a virtual recruiting process. Having virtually interviewed dozens of candidates in the past 2 months, I can consistently see that candidates are more confident and comfortable in their own workspace as opposed to ours. Even though we are staring at one another through a computer screen, I feel I'm getting the same amount of connection, if not more. Point number 4. Put all candidates on an equal playing field. There are many pros to in-person interview, but there is also many cons. One of the biggest cons is the meeting people in person enables hiring bias to creep in at a higher rate. We are humans and unconscious or not. We judge people by how they dress or even how professional they may look. When we interview virtually, we are less distracted by irrelevant details of appearance and focus more on what candidates have to intelligently say.
Thank you, Shazwan. Such an informative and fruity explanation from Shazwan just now. From the explanation, I am really convinced that virtual recruitment and selection is more effective, less time-consuming, and requires less efforts with big returns of positive impacts from both sides, which is from the organization and from the interviewee too. Knowing the advantages, I would like to also to know the other sides of it. Maybe after hearing the other side of explanation, I will turn my agrees to disagrees. Who knows, right? Next, we move to our second panel, which is Nurul. So, Nurul, how far you agree to disagree from the statements and explanation of Shazwan just now?
Thank you to moderator Asmida. I agree with what Shazwan Pena said about the advantage of virtual recruitment and selection where with this pandemic COVID-19 situation. We also have standard operating procedure at the workplace that have been set by the government to prevent coronavirus transmission among workers and employers. But don't be unaware of where virtual recruitment and selection also have the disadvantage. I want to say the disadvantage in this virtual recruitment and selection is that the employer is quite difficult to identify the personal information provided by the candidate is true, and it takes time to determine the validity of the data. Where this method can occur fraud on the part of prospective employers who apply for job vacancies, such as cheating educational qualification, giving false certificate of participation, and so on. Then, employers may lose great employers. This means online hiring can sometimes fail to attract good employees if a company online does not match what the prospective employers is looking for. Prospective employers may or will usually rush to an organization website or social media to learn about the company's overall reputation, mission, and culture. If they see that the company is not great enough, They may reject the job proposal or ignore the company's ad altogether. Next, internet connection issue. One of the major downsides to video interview is that they are not dependent on a stable and fast internet connection. If the candidate's local is not able to provide a sufficient quality of service, frequent disconnect and poor video or audio quality may simply cause the recruiter to move on to another candidate, even though the first candidate might have been a better option in terms of skill, knowledge, and experience. Things such as technical issue will not affect a person's chance to impress during the face-to-face interview. Last but not least, poor video quality. I have already mentioned that some companies require candidates who, in addition to having strong skill, are also presentable and charismatic and are capable to representing the company when needed. Poor video quality can diminish the candidate's chance to getting hired because their presentation was not as effective as it should have been. The recruiters report which application will unfortunately move on to someone else who is able to showcase himself or herself better.
You have a good point, Nurul, but I have additional point to add. As for me, as human resource advisor, due to the pandemic since January 2020, many companies around the world have affected in terms of labor operation and financial. This pandemic also will change type of company operation or standard operation procedure. And this also happened on recruitment and selection in all sector became new norm which is conducted virtually, recruiting and onboarding a remote workforce. This practice not only in our country is also all countries around the world that need to adapt new situation and new environment before all back to normal. More companies will adopt visual recruiting technologies, shift talent acquisition effort to remote candidates. Consider internal talent pools and focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The best recruiters will take the opportunity to add new skill, adapt as needed, and show their value to the organization. From my research, some other countries already implement this new norm and quickly to adapt with new environment because businesses will need gear back up when COVID-19 is mitigated and life can start returning to normal. And they already implements new norm challenges of recruiting like America, United Kingdom, London, and Malaysia. Okay, in America, they believe that visual hiring is here to start. A hiring process that combines visual and in-person processing will become increasingly standard due to the associated cost and time saving. This is according to 70% of respondents to the link survey and company will emphasize internal hiring. Some experts believe that employer will build their workforce through internal mobility program tied to reskilling initiative or engage contingent talent instead of hiring externally. Recruiters also will expand their skill sets. Recruiters are rapidly adding skills like bringing clarity to talents data, reshaping employer branding, and fine tuning the visual hiring process. In Malaysia, organization that already implement a visual recruiting is Nestle. They use technology to explore new ways to engage potential candidates via webinar and visual career fairs through partnership with Seeds, Talent Bank, and Lazada. They also advertise job vacancy through their social media career pages on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, as well on their Nestle Malaysia career website. They are also conducting online video interviews with the job seekers, while Azata Group have 2 online interviews as part of the company selection process. The digitalized selection process have 5 stages: online application, online assessment, screening interview, assessment center, and final interview. They also used of social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. They believe that was important to connect with their potential hires. Meanwhile, in United Kingdom London, the registered candidate have a screening interview over the phone. At these stages, many deselect as they find out more about the reality of the role. Agency and recruitment advertising partners offer service on a pro bono basis and pass candidates on to the service. The hiring process, there has been an initial screening via telephone followed by a visual video interview on Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Videos are used to show how certain activities should be carried out in practice, and employees can also access additional e-learning modules. A detailed risk assessment to find out whether candidates have had to self-isolate previously and whether they have come into contact with anyone who has tested positive. This is as a part of their visual interview process. They have built in some behavioral competencies which they score and assess.
Good points from Nurul and Sheila. It opens my eyes well knowing the elaborated points from both. Okay, let me ask from Nurul Izzati regarding this matter. So, Nurul Izzati, what do you think about virtual recruitment and selection? And can you share the scope of recruitment, selection, and hiring from your companies that you might share with us and other things related with it?
Thank you, moderator, for the question. From my opinion, virtual recruitment is an important strategy that must be implemented by the company to achieve a competitive advantage. Besides the resources, the use of virtual recruitment also can help the company to hire the most suitable candidate with better skills and experience. According to the benefit that had been stated from panel 1, it had proved that implementation of virtual recruitment will provide huge assistance to the performance of company. Although the employer may give training to employees after implementing virtual recruitment, choosing the right word is not easy if without experience. Now, I will start off by talking a little bit just to kind of give an overview of our entire selection recruitment process for my company. Candidates will go through a very rigorous process in order to make it into our approved pool. It's called multi-step process. First of all, with them having to engage in instructional video where they have to watch the video and I will give feedback and evaluate the performance of the candidate from there. They need to carry out and submit performance tasks that have evaluated and viewed by members of leadership development team. So, have an effective leadership plan and effective vision to ensure that we can really hone some of the things we are looking for from a candidate. Candidates have an opportunity to interview in person with multiple members of the company. So they will interview with the HR manager as always and the manager from the recruit department. So that's given the overall scope of our process. Once the candidate passes the interview, the final decision on selection and placement will be made by HR and will be discussed with specific people. Thank you.
Wow, impressive, Nurul Izzati, and thank you once again for the brilliant points. Looks like Nurul Izzati managed to answer the questions rightfully with good points from her. I can see that the clock is ticking to the end of our time for today's discussion. Maybe before we ended our today's discussion, our 4 panels can convey their final message to us regarding this in-trend topic. So let's start with our first panel to the last one. All right. What are your opinions and final message regarding virtual recruitment and selection, especially when it's happening in our own country, Malaysia?
Thank you, moderator, for the question. I think the use of technology and digitalization in the present era is highly recommended. Also, we need to think of the right balance between health and safety, a thing that makes people feel comfortable. My final message with this emphasis, we should always be forward thinking based on the assumption that big problems we face today are not abnormal phenomena, but rather new realities that open up new opportunities that our organization want and should do. At the end of the sentences from me, companies need to implement and develop business continuity strategies, open up opportunities for internal knowledge and skills, develop agile systems, incorporate innovative technologies, and set possibilities for business process continuity. Thank you.
I think visual recruitment strategies are important tools in the toolbox. They can help companies hire remote workers from all over the world without having to worry about flying people in for meetings. And in the case of a national crisis or company specific issue, the recruiting process can continue without a hitch. Besides that, most of the companies, not only in Malaysia, must have their own strategy and develop new skill in recruiting process.
My final message as panel number one. I think organization were ready for all of the change to their talent system that the COVID-19 pandemic required. But despite all the painful reckoning that the pandemic has worked, it also forced the organization to rethink their traditional recruitment and talent acquisitions process.
In my opinion, every company has different challenges to implement of virtual recruitment, but at this serious stage during the COVID-19 invasion, where virtual recruitment is very necessary, this is because people must follow the standard operation procedure that maintain social distance and should not hold meeting to make sure people are not affected with the coronavirus. Therefore, candidates must improve themselves with this new method of recruitment to find job, and companies must prepare their companies to implement virtual recruitment technology for the purpose of hiring talent. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you to all our panelists for their brilliant opinions today. Such an impressive point that we gained here in this session, and I am well content with it. Finally, we have come to the end of our discussion for now, and it is such an opportunity to gain a lot of new things from my panelists, which previously we might not even get used to it or lacking knowledge about it. Virtual recruitment and selection of an employee for an organization or company is happening and well utilized due to the pandemic of COVID-19. For me, it is such an experience to gain. Besides the good things that can be seen from it, there are also terrible things lies underneath. It is everyone's perspective to interpret it either is good or vice versa. In conclusion, as for me, be it whether by physical or virtual, both sides of party needs to be well prepared for the recruitment and selection. Do not take the opportunity of virtual recruitment and selection for granted and ensure that in whatever circumstances and situation, we are adaptable, committable, and always be ready because as an employer, first impression is the beginning of every step that we are going to heading. Well, I think this is it for this session. Till we meet again in another discussion, in another tech talk session. Thank you to everyone that watched this video, and thank you once again to our four panelists just now.